The morning sun cast long shadows across the naval base as Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the medical facility doors for her first day. Her small frame and quiet demeanor made her almost invisible among the towering SEALs who dominated the hallways. She carried herself with purpose, her medical bag in one hand and a steaming cup of coffee in the other. The base commander had briefed her the previous week. She would be the new combat medic assigned to SEAL Team 7, one of the most elite units in the Navy. It was an honor, he said, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced she was ready for what lay ahead. Sarah had simply nodded and accepted the assignment without complaint. As she entered the medical bay, she noticed the peculiar silence that seemed to follow her. Conversation stopped mid-sentence when she passed. Eyes tracked her movements with curious intensity. She had grown accustomed to this reaction over the years. Being one of the few women in such a male-dominated environment always drew attention. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison was the first to approach her. His weathered face bore the marks of countless missions, and his eyes held the sharp intelligence of a seasoned warrior. He extended a calloused hand in greeting, studying her with the same intensity he might use to assess a potential threat. Sarah shook his hand firmly, meeting his gaze without flinching. There was something in her eyes that made Jake pause. It wasn't fear or uncertainty that he expected to see in a newcomer. Instead, there was a depth of experience that seemed impossible for someone so young and seemingly untested. The other team members gradually filtered into the medical bay throughout the morning. Each introduction followed the same pattern. Initial skepticism, polite conversation, and then that same puzzled look when they locked eyes with Sarah. None of them could quite put their finger on what they were seeing, but something about her presence felt different. Sergeant First Class Marcus Williams was particularly vocal about his concerns. He had seen too many medics freeze under pressure, and the thought of depending on someone unproven in combat made him uncomfortable. Sarah listened to his objections without defensive reactions, simply nodding and acknowledging his concerns with professional calm. The team's reputation preceded them. They had completed some of the most dangerous missions in recent military history. Every member had been tested in the crucible of combat, forged into something harder than steel. They were men who had stared death in the face and emerged victorious, earning their place through blood, sweat, and unwavering determination. Sarah understood their skepticism. She had faced similar doubt throughout her career, and she knew that respect had to be earned, not given. She went about her duties methodically, organizing medical supplies, reviewing team medical records, and familiarizing herself with emergency protocols. Her movements were efficient and precise, betraying a level of experience that didn't match her apparent youth. By the end of her first day, the team remained cordial, but distant. They watched her work with professional interest but kept their conversations surface level. Sarah didn't mind the isolation. She had learned long ago that some stories were better left untold, at least until the right moment presented itself. As evening approached, Sarah packed her medical supplies with the same methodical precision she had displayed all day. The base grew quieter as personnel headed to their quarters or the mess hall. She paused at the window overlooking the training grounds, watching the last rays of sunlight paint the sky in shades of orange and red. Lieutenant Commander Morrison lingered in the medical bay, pretending to review training schedules while observing Sarah's routine. There was something about her that nagged at his instincts. In his years of service, he had developed an ability to read people quickly and accurately. Sarah presented a puzzle that his usual methods couldn't solve. Their eyes met in the reflection of the window, and for a brief moment, Jake saw something flicker across her features. It was gone so quickly he might have imagined it, but the impression remained. Whatever secrets Sarah carried, they ran deeper than any of them suspected. The first day had passed without incident, but Jake knew that the real test would come when they were deployed in the field. Combat had a way of revealing truth that no amount of conversation or observation could uncover. Until then, Sarah Chen would remain an enigma, a quiet professional whose true capabilities remained hidden beneath a carefully maintained facade. 3 weeks into her assignment, Sarah had settled into a routine that kept her mostly invisible to the team. She arrived early, completed her duties with quiet efficiency, and left without drawing attention to herself. The SEALs had grown accustomed to her presence, treating her with professional courtesy while maintaining their emotional distance. The breakthrough came during what should have been a routine training exercise in the desert. The team was practicing urban warfare scenarios in a mock village, constructed specifically for such purposes. The exercise was designed to test their coordination and response times under stress, with live ammunition and realistic explosive effects adding to the intensity. Sarah had been assigned to set up a mobile medical station at the exercise perimeter. Prepared to treat any injuries that might occur during the training, she methodically arranged her equipment, checking and double-checking every piece of medical gear, with the thoroughness of someone who understood that lives could depend on such preparation. The exercise began before dawn. With the team moving through the mock village in coordinated sweeps, Sarah monitored their progress through radio communications, tracking their movements and noting any reports of simulated casualties. Everything proceeded according to plan until an unexpected equipment malfunction changed the dynamic entirely. A training explosive device malfunctioned, creating a real explosion that was far more powerful than intended. The blast echoed across the desert like thunder, followed by urgent radio chatter as team members reported actual injuries. 2 SEALs were down, with at least 1 seriously wounded, and smoke from the explosion obscured visibility in the immediate area. Sarah was moving before the radio report finished. She grabbed her medical kit and sprinted toward the explosion site with a speed and determination that caught everyone off guard. Her small frame covered the rough terrain with surprising agility, navigating obstacles that would have slowed larger individuals. When she reached the scene, she found Petty Officer David Chen pinned under debris with a severe leg injury, while Sergeant Williams nursed what appeared to be a concussion from the blast. The other team members were working to clear the debris, but their efforts were hampered by the unstable nature of the damaged structure. Without hesitation, Sarah dropped to her knees beside the wounded men and began her assessment. Her hands moved with practiced confidence, checking vital signs and evaluating injuries with the kind of calm efficiency that only came from extensive experience. She spoke in clear, measured tones, directing the team's efforts while simultaneously treating the wounded. Lieutenant Commander Morrison watched in amazement as Sarah took control of the situation. Her earlier quiet demeanor had transformed into something entirely different. She moved with the confidence of someone who had faced similar situations many times before, making split-second decisions that showed both medical expertise and battlefield awareness. The most seriously injured SEAL required immediate evacuation, but the nearest helicopter landing zone was nearly a mile away across difficult terrain. Sarah made the call to move him, coordinating with the team to create an improvised stretcher while maintaining constant medical monitoring throughout the transport. During the evacuation, Sarah's focus never wavered. She monitored the wounded man's condition while navigating the challenging terrain, adjusting treatment protocols based on changing circumstances. Her stamina seemed inexhaustible, and her medical skills were far more advanced than anyone had expected from a newly assigned medic. By the time they reached the evacuation point, both wounded SEALs were stable and conscious. The more seriously injured man would require surgery, but Sarah's quick thinking and expert treatment had likely saved his life. As the helicopter lifted off toward the nearest military hospital, the remaining team members stood in stunned silence. Sergeant Williams, despite his own injury, was the first to speak. His earlier skepticism had evaporated completely, replaced by a grudging respect for Sarah's capabilities under pressure. He had seen combat medics work before, but Sarah's performance had exceeded anything in his experience. Lieutenant Commander Morrison studied Sarah as she cleaned and repacked her medical equipment. The transformation he had witnessed was remarkable, but it also raised new questions about her background. The level of skill and composure she had displayed suggested extensive combat experience, yet her personnel file indicated she was relatively new to such assignments. As they prepared to return to base, Sarah reverted to her usual quiet demeanor, answering questions about the wounded men's conditions in brief professional responses. She deflected praise for her performance, insisting that she had simply done what any qualified medic would do under similar circumstances. The team's attitude towards Sarah began to shift after the training incident. Where before there had been polite distance, now there was genuine curiosity and growing respect. They had seen her perform under pressure, and her capabilities clearly exceeded their initial assumptions. However, Sarah remained as private as ever about her personal background. When asked about her previous assignments or training, she gave vague responses that revealed little information. It was clear that she possessed extensive experience, but the details of how she had acquired such skills remained a mystery that deepened with each passing day. The atmosphere in the team changed dramatically after the training incident. Where once Sarah had been met with polite skepticism, she now received nods of acknowledgement and genuine respect from the SEALs. They had witnessed her capabilities firsthand, and that experience had shattered their preconceptions about her abilities. Petty Officer David Chen returned to duty 2 weeks later with a pronounced limp but full functionality. His gratitude toward Sarah was evident in every interaction, though she consistently deflected his attempts to thank her for saving his life. She maintained that she had simply done her job, nothing more extraordinary than what any qualified medic would accomplish under similar circumstances. The team began including Sarah in their informal gatherings more frequently. Evening conversations in the mess hall or recreational areas now included her as a matter of course rather than obligation. Yet even as they grew more comfortable with her presence, they noticed that Sarah rarely spoke about herself or her past experiences. Lieutenant Commander Morrison decided to review Sarah's personnel file more thoroughly. What he found puzzled him even more than her performance during the training incident. Her official record showed a relatively straightforward progression through medical training and brief assignments at various bases. But there were gaps in her service history that didn't quite add up. The gaps weren't obvious unless someone looked carefully. But Jake's trained eye caught discrepancies in dates and locations that suggested portions of her service record had been classified or deliberately obscured. Such redactions typically indicated involvement in special operations or classified missions, which seemed inconsistent with her apparent lack of combat experience. During a particularly challenging training session in close-quarters combat, Sarah's true capabilities began to surface in unexpected ways. The team was practicing medical evacuations under simulated enemy fire, with Sarah required to treat wounded team members while hostile forces attempted to prevent the rescue. What surprised everyone was Sarah's instinctive responses to the simulated combat environment. She moved through the exercise with an awareness of tactical situations that went far beyond medical training. Her positioning, her timing, and her ability to predict enemy movements suggested someone with extensive combat experience rather than a medic learning battlefield procedures. Sergeant Williams noticed that Sarah seemed to anticipate threats before they materialized, positioning herself and her patients in locations that provided maximum cover while maintaining access to evacuation routes. Her movements were economical and purposeful, wasting no motion while maintaining constant medical monitoring of her charges. When the exercise concluded, the team gathered for their usual debrief session. Sarah participated minimally, offering technical observations about medical procedures while remaining silent about the tactical aspects of the exercise. Her reluctance to discuss strategy or combat techniques became increasingly noticeable to the experienced warriors around her. The turning point came during an evening when the team was relaxing in the recreation room, sharing stories about their most challenging missions. The conversation naturally turned to close calls and moments when quick thinking had saved lives. Each team member contributed tales of narrow escapes and heroic actions, building camaraderie through shared experiences. When the conversation reached Sarah, she politely declined to share any stories, claiming that her experiences had been relatively mundane compared to theirs. The deflection was smooth and practiced, but it only served to heighten the team's curiosity about her background. Her apparent humility seemed inconsistent with the advanced skills she had demonstrated. Petty Officer Michael Torres, the team's demolitions expert, decided to press the issue gently. He had noticed Sarah's reaction during exercises involving explosive devices, detecting a familiarity with such weapons that went beyond basic medical training. Her comfort level around dangerous equipment suggested hands-on experience that her official record didn't support. Sarah's response to Torres's questions was characteristically evasive, but for the first time, the team detected a slight tension in her demeanor. She maintained her professional composure, but there was something in her eyes that suggested memories she preferred to keep buried. The glimpse was brief, but it confirmed their growing suspicion that she was hiding significant portions of her past. The mystery of Sarah's background became an unofficial team project. Without discussing it openly, each member began paying closer attention to her reactions during different types of training exercises. They noted her familiarity with weapon systems, her understanding of enemy tactics, and her ability to function effectively in high-stress combat simulations. Lieutenant Commander Morrison decided to conduct a more thorough investigation into Sarah's background. Using his security clearance and contacts within the intelligence community, he began making discreet inquiries about the gaps in her service record. What he discovered would change everything the team thought they knew about their quiet medic. The initial responses to his inquiries were frustrating. Sarah's classified service record was heavily redacted, with entire sections marked as need to know only. However, Jake's persistence and his reputation within the special operations community eventually opened doors that had previously remained closed to outside inquiry. The information he received was limited but explosive. Sarah Chen had indeed served in classified operations, but not in the capacity that anyone had suspected. Her true service record revealed involvement in some of the most dangerous missions conducted by American forces in recent years, though the specific details remained classified at the highest levels. Lieutenant Commander Morrison's investigation revealed fragments of information that painted a picture none of them had expected. Sarah Chen hadn't simply been a medic in previous assignments. According to the classified documents he managed to access, she had served as part of a joint special operations unit that conducted some of the most dangerous rescue missions behind enemy lines. The limited information available suggested that Sarah had been involved in operations where medical personnel were required to function as combat soldiers while maintaining their primary medical responsibilities. These missions typically involved extracting wounded personnel from hostile territory where conventional rescue operations would be impossible or too risky. Jake shared his findings with the team during a private meeting in his office. The revelation that their quiet medic had extensive combat experience explained many of the inconsistencies they had observed in her behavior and capabilities. However, it also raised new questions about why she had been reassigned to their unit and why her background had been concealed. The team's attitude toward Sarah shifted once again, but this time the change was more subtle. They continued to treat her with the same respect she had earned through her performance. But now their interactions carried an undercurrent of curiosity about experiences she clearly wasn't ready to discuss. They began watching for clues about her past and her reactions to different situations. During a particularly intense training exercise involving hostage rescue scenarios, Sarah's tactical awareness became impossible to ignore. She moved through the simulated environment with the confidence of someone who had navigated similar situations in real combat. Her positioning during firefights, her understanding of enemy behavior patterns, and her ability to coordinate medical treatment with ongoing combat operations all pointed to extensive field experience. Sergeant Williams approached Sarah after the exercise, attempting to engage her in a conversation about combat medical procedures. He had served multiple tours in combat zones and recognized the subtle signs of someone who had experienced the reality of battlefield medicine under extreme conditions. Sarah's responses were knowledgeable but carefully neutral, revealing expertise while avoiding specific details about how she had acquired such knowledge. The team began to realize that Sarah's quietness wasn't simply shyness or professional reserve. She was actively concealing significant portions of her experience, and her reluctance to discuss her background suggested that those experiences might have been traumatic or classified to a degree that made casual conversation impossible. Petty Officer Torres noticed that Sarah sometimes seemed lost in thought during quiet moments, staring into the distance with an expression that suggested she was reliving experiences from her past. When approached during these moments, she would quickly refocus on present circumstances, but the glimpse of whatever memories she was processing hinted at experiences that had left lasting impacts. The breakthrough in understanding Sarah's reluctance to discuss her past came during an unexpected incident. The base received an emergency call requesting immediate medical support for a civilian contractor who had been injured in an accident at a nearby construction site. Sarah was the only medical personnel immediately available to respond to the emergency. The injury was severe, involving multiple trauma from heavy equipment that had malfunctioned during construction work. Sarah found herself treating a critically wounded patient under less than ideal conditions, with limited equipment and no backup medical support. The situation required her to make complex medical decisions while coordinating with civilian emergency responders who lacked military training. Lieutenant Commander Morrison accompanied Sarah to provide security and coordination support. During the emergency response, he observed her work with renewed appreciation for her capabilities. Her medical skills were exceptional, but more importantly, her ability to remain calm and focused under extreme pressure suggested someone who had faced life and death situations many times before us. They worked to stabilize the patient for transport to the nearest hospital. Morrison noticed that Sarah's hands bore faint scars that he hadn't observed previously. The markings were subtle but consistent with injuries that might result from combat operations or explosive devices. Combined with her obvious experience and tactical awareness, these physical evidence suggested that her concealed service record involved direct combat rather than traditional medical support roles. The civilian contractor survived his injuries thanks to Sarah's immediate intervention and expert treatment. During the drive back to base, Morrison attempted to engage Sarah in conversation about the emergency response, hoping to learn more about her background through her reflections on the incident. Sarah's responses were characteristically professional, focusing on medical procedures and technical aspects of the treatment rather than personal experiences. However, Morrison detected a subtle change in her demeanor following the emergency call. She seemed more relaxed, as if the successful treatment of a critically injured patient had satisfied something important within her professional identity. That evening, the team gathered for their usual informal debrief session. For the first time since joining the unit, Sarah volunteered information about her work without being directly questioned. She discussed the medical challenges presented by the civilian contractor's injuries, sharing technical insights that revealed the depth of her trauma medicine experience. The conversation marked a subtle shift in Sarah's interaction with the team. While she remained private about her personal background, she began contributing more actively to professional discussions about medical procedures and tactical medicine. Her insights were consistently valuable, drawing from a reservoir of experience that clearly exceeded what anyone had initially expected. Sergeant Williams recognized the change in Sarah's demeanor and decided to test the boundaries of her willingness to engage. He began asking increasingly specific questions about combat medical procedures, hoping to draw her into discussions that might reveal more about her background. Sarah's responses demonstrated extensive knowledge, while carefully avoiding details that might identify specific operations or locations where she had gained such experience. The team's first real deployment with Sarah came 6 weeks after her arrival. They were tasked with a reconnaissance mission in a hostile region, where intelligence gathering required them to operate behind enemy lines for an extended period. The mission briefing emphasized the importance of remaining undetected while collecting information about enemy movements and capabilities. Sarah prepared for the deployment with the same methodical attention to detail she applied to all her work. But the team noticed subtle changes in her behavior. As the departure date approached, she became more focused, her movements more precise, and her awareness of their surroundings seemed to sharpen significantly. The transformation suggested someone preparing for combat, rather than simply supporting a reconnaissance operation. During the pre-mission equipment check, Sarah's familiarity with weapons and tactical gear became impossible to ignore. She handled firearms with practiced ease, checking and adjusting equipment with the confidence of someone who had relied on such tools for survival. Her tactical vest was arranged with the efficiency of a combat veteran, every piece of gear positioned for maximum accessibility under stress. Lieutenant Commander Morrison observed Sarah's preparation routine with growing certainty that her background involved far more combat experience than her official record suggested. The way she moved, the automatic checks she performed on her equipment, and her obvious comfort with weapons all pointed to someone who had spent significant time in hostile environments. The insertion into enemy territory proceeded smoothly, with the team moving through difficult terrain under cover of darkness. Sarah's performance during the infiltration surprised everyone with its professional competence. She maintained pace with the highly trained SEALs without apparent difficulty, navigating obstacles and maintaining operational security with skills that suggested extensive field experience. Once they established their observation post, the team settled into the routine of intelligence gathering that would occupy them for the next several days. Sarah's role was officially limited to providing medical support as needed, but her tactical awareness and ability to spot potential threats quickly made her an invaluable contributor to their security efforts. On the second day of the mission, their position was nearly compromised when an enemy patrol passed closer to their hiding spot than anticipated. The team remained motionless for nearly 2 hours while hostile forces moved through the area, knowing that any movement or sound could result in discovery and almost certain death. During this tense period, Sarah demonstrated the kind of discipline and nerve that only came from extensive combat experience. She remained perfectly still despite uncomfortable positioning, controlled her breathing to minimize any sound, and maintained constant awareness of the tactical situation without betraying their presence through any movement. When the enemy patrol finally moved away from their position, Sergeant Williams exchanged a meaningful look with Lieutenant Commander Morrison. Sarah's performance under extreme stress had exceeded anything they might have expected from a support medic, regardless of training. Her composure suggested someone who had faced similar life-threatening situations many times before. The third day brought an unexpected complication when one of the team members, Petty Officer Chen, developed severe symptoms that appeared to be either food poisoning or exposure to a local pathogen. His condition deteriorated rapidly, requiring immediate medical attention that could compromise their mission if not handled properly. Sarah's response to the medical emergency revealed another layer of her hidden capabilities. She diagnosed Chen's condition quickly and began treatment using field-expedient methods that demonstrated extensive experience with treating illness and injury in hostile environments where conventional medical facilities were unavailable. More importantly, Sarah's treatment plan took into account the tactical situation and mission requirements. She developed a medication regimen that would control Chen's symptoms without impairing his ability to move quickly if their position was discovered. Her consideration of both medical and tactical factors showed a level of integration between medical and combat training that typically required extensive field experience. As Chen's condition stabilized under Sarah's care, the team realized that her medical expertise extended far beyond what they had observed during training exercises. Her knowledge of field medicine, tropical diseases, and emergency treatment protocols suggested someone who had operated in diverse and challenging environments around the world. Lieutenant Commander Morrison made the decision to extend their mission by 1 day to ensure Chen was fully recovered before attempting the extraction. During this additional time, he engaged Sarah in careful conversation about her medical decision-making process, hoping to learn more about the experiences that had shaped her exceptional capabilities. Sarah's responses revealed extensive knowledge of medical challenges common to special operations, including treatment of wounds sustained in combat, management of infections in field conditions, and coordination of medical care with ongoing tactical operations. Her insights were consistently practical and demonstrated through personal experience rather than theoretical training. The extraction phase of the mission provided the final confirmation of Sarah's hidden combat background. When their planned extraction route was blocked by increased enemy activity, the team was forced to move through more dangerous terrain while carrying Chen, who was still recovering from his illness. During the movement to an alternate extraction point, Sarah's tactical skills became fully apparent. She moved with the team as an equal rather than protected cargo, contributing to their security and helping to carry equipment when Chen's condition required additional support. Her performance during the extraction convinced even the most skeptical team members that she possessed extensive combat experience. The successful completion of their first mission together marked a turning point in the team's relationship with Sarah. They had witnessed her capabilities under real operational conditions, and her performance had exceeded their highest expectations. However, the experience also intensified their curiosity about the background she continued to conceal. Back at base, the team's debrief session included discussions about Sarah's contributions to the mission's success. Her medical expertise had been crucial in maintaining Chen's health, but her tactical awareness and combat skills had proven equally valuable. The combination of capabilities suggested a background that none of them fully understood, despite their growing respect for her abilities. The success of their first mission together had cemented Sarah's place within the team, but it had also intensified their curiosity about her concealed background. Lieutenant Commander Morrison decided that the time had come for a direct conversation about her service history, both for operational security reasons and to better understand the capabilities of his team member. He approached Sarah during a quiet evening when most of the team was off duty. Finding her in the medical bay organizing supplies with her usual methodical precision, Morrison closed the door and activated the privacy protocols that would prevent their conversation from being overheard or recorded by routine-based security systems. Sarah looked up from her work as Morrison activated the privacy measures, and for the first time since joining the team, he saw a flicker of something that might have been resignation cross her features. She seemed to understand that the moment she had been avoiding was finally at hand, and there was a subtle shift in her posture that suggested someone preparing for a difficult conversation. Morrison began carefully, acknowledging Sarah's exceptional performance and the team's growing respect for her capabilities. He explained that his questions weren't motivated by suspicion or distrust, but by a genuine need to understand the full extent of her experience so that he could deploy the team most effectively in future operations. Sarah listened to Morrison's explanation without interruption, her expression remaining carefully neutral. When he finished speaking, she was quiet for several long moments, apparently weighing her options and considering how much information she was willing or able to share about her background. Finally, Sarah began to speak in measured tones that suggested she had rehearsed this moment many times in her mind. She confirmed that her service record had been classified due to her involvement in special operations, but explained that she was limited in what details she could share due to ongoing security classifications and operational considerations. What she was able to reveal painted a picture that exceeded even Morrison's educated guesses about her background. Sarah had served as part of a joint special operations unit that specialized in personnel recovery operations in extremely hostile environments. Her role had required her to function simultaneously as a combat medic and as a fully qualified special operations soldier. The unit she had served with conducted missions that were so classified that even their existence was known only to a select few individuals within the military and intelligence communities. Their operations typically involved extracting high-value personnel from situations where conventional rescue operations would be impossible or would risk escalating international incidents. Sarah's medical training had been augmented with extensive combat instruction, language training, and specialized skills that allowed her to operate independently in hostile territory for extended periods. She had participated in operations across multiple theaters, accumulating combat experience that rivaled or exceeded that of many career special operations personnel. The reason for her transfer to Morrison's team, Sarah explained, was related to psychological evaluation following her most recent deployment. While she had performed her duties with exceptional competence, military psychologists had determined that she needed a period of reduced operational tempo to process experiences from her classified service. Morrison's understanding of military psychology helped him recognize what Sarah was describing. She had been assigned to his team not because she lacked experience, but because she had too much experience of the most traumatic kind. Her quiet demeanor and reluctance to discuss her background were consistent with someone processing significant psychological trauma. Sarah's willingness to share this limited information represented a significant breakthrough in her relationship with the team, but Morrison could see that the conversation was difficult for her. She maintained her professional composure throughout the discussion, but there were subtle signs of emotional strain that suggested the memories she was accessing were painful. When Morrison asked about specific skills or experiences that might be relevant to future team operations, Sarah's responses revealed the full scope of her capabilities. She was qualified in advanced combat medicine, explosive ordnance disposal, multiple foreign languages, and specialized infiltration techniques that were typically reserved for the most elite special operations units. Perhaps most significantly, Sarah's experience included extensive work with traumatic battlefield injuries under the most challenging possible conditions. Her medical expertise wasn't limited to routine combat medicine, but extended to complex surgical procedures that she had performed in field conditions without proper equipment or support. The conversation concluded with Morrison's commitment to protect Sarah's privacy while ensuring that the team could benefit from her full range of capabilities. He understood that her psychological recovery required careful management of her operational responsibilities, but he also recognized that her skills represented a tremendous asset for future missions. Over the following days, Morrison shared selected information about Sarah's background with the rest of the team. He was careful to respect the privacy limitations she had requested while providing enough context for the team to understand and appreciate her true qualifications. The team's reaction to learning about Sarah's special operations background was mixed. There was obvious respect for her accomplishments and understanding of why she had been reluctant to discuss her experiences. However, there was also concern about her psychological well-being and questions about how her trauma might affect her performance in future operations. Sergeant Williams, who had initially been most skeptical about Sarah's qualifications, became one of her strongest supporters once he understood her background. His own combat experience helped him recognize the signs of someone processing difficult memories, and he made subtle efforts to create opportunities for Sarah to feel valued, without pressure to discuss her experiences. The revelation about Sarah's background changed the team's dynamic in subtle but important ways. They began to defer to her expertise in areas where her experience exceeded their own, while being careful not to push her beyond her current emotional limitations. The balance between utilizing her skills and protecting her recovery became an ongoing consideration in their operational planning. 6 months after Sarah's arrival, the team faced their most challenging mission yet. Intelligence had located a high-value target in a heavily fortified compound deep in hostile territory. The mission required infiltration, surveillance, and potential direct action if the opportunity presented itself. The complexity and danger of the operation would test every member of the team to their limits. During the mission briefing, Sarah's input proved invaluable in ways that surprised even Morrison, who now understood her background. Her knowledge of the target region, gained during her classified operations, provided tactical insights that weren't available through conventional intelligence channels. She identified potential medical challenges specific to the environment and suggested equipment modifications that could prove crucial. The team's preparation for the mission revealed how much their dynamic had evolved since Sarah's arrival, where once they had planned around protecting their medic, they now incorporated her full capabilities into their tactical considerations. Her combat skills, medical expertise, and regional knowledge made her an integral part of their operational planning rather than simply support personnel. As they prepared to deploy, Sarah's demeanor showed subtle changes that reflected her growing comfort with the team and her role within it. While she remained quiet and professional, there was less of the defensive reservation that had characterized her early interactions. She seemed more willing to engage with the team as equals, rather than maintaining the emotional distance that had initially defined her relationships. The insertion phase of the mission proceeded flawlessly, with Sarah demonstrating the full extent of her infiltration skills. She moved through hostile territory with the confidence of someone who had conducted similar operations many times before, contributing to their security and helping to navigate challenges that would have been problematic for a conventional medical support person. Once they established surveillance of the target compound, Sarah's specialized knowledge proved crucial in unexpected ways. Her familiarity with the architecture and defensive measures common to the region allowed her to identify potential infiltration routes that weren't obvious to team members with different regional experience. Her insights helped refine their tactical approach and improve their chances of mission success. The critical moment came when their surveillance revealed that the target was preparing to leave the compound. Earlier than intelligence had predicted, the team faced a decision between attempting immediate action under less than ideal conditions or allowing the target to escape to an unknown location where capture might become impossible. Sarah's medical assessment of Team I readiness and her tactical evaluation of the situation proved decisive in Morrison's decision-making process. Her professional judgment, informed by extensive experience with similar high-risk operations, provided the confidence he needed to authorize immediate action, despite the challenges presented by the accelerated timeline. During the assault on the compound, Sarah's dual capabilities as medic and combat soldier proved invaluable. She provided medical support when Petty Officer Torres was wounded by defensive fire, while simultaneously contributing to the team's combat effectiveness through accurate tactical shooting and explosive ordnance disposal. When they encountered improvised defensive devices, the successful capture of the target was accomplished, with minimal casualties, largely due to the team's enhanced capabilities that now included Sarah's full range of skills. Her medical expertise ensured that Torres's injuries were properly treated under combat conditions, while her tactical contributions had been essential to overcoming the target's defensive measures. During the extraction phase, Sarah's performance reached levels that finally silenced any remaining questions about her qualifications. When their primary extraction route was compromised by enemy reinforcements, she helped identify and clear an alternate route while maintaining medical monitoring of the wounded team member and ensuring the security of their captured target. The successful completion of the mission marked a turning point not only for the team's operational capabilities, but also for Sarah's integration into their brotherhood. Her performance under the most challenging possible conditions had proven that she belonged among them, not as a protected asset, but as an equal contributor to their collective effectiveness. Back at base, the debrief session included frank discussions about how Sarah's capabilities had enhanced their mission success. For the first time since joining the team, she participated fully in the tactical analysis, sharing insights from her perspective as both medical support and combat participant. The transformation in team dynamics was complete. Sarah was no longer the quiet outsider whose background remained mysterious. She had become an integral part of their operational family, trusted not only for her medical expertise but for her judgment in life and death situations. In the weeks following the mission, the team's relationship with Sarah evolved into something deeper than professional respect. They had shared the crucible of combat and emerged as a more cohesive unit. Sarah's willingness to reveal portions of her background had created a foundation of trust that enhanced their collective effectiveness. The scars that Sarah carried, both physical and emotional, were no longer sources of shame or secrecy. The team understood that her quiet strength had been forged in experiences that few could comprehend, and their respect for her capabilities was matched by their appreciation for the courage it took to continue serving despite those experiences. Lieutenant Commander Morrison recognized that Sarah's integration into the team represented more than simply adding another qualified operator. Her unique combination of medical expertise and combat experience had elevated their capabilities to new levels, while her presence had taught them valuable lessons about resilience and the importance of supporting team members through difficult transitions. Sarah's journey from mysterious outsider to trusted team member reflected the military's best traditions of evaluating individuals based on their actions rather than their backgrounds. Her quiet professionalism and exceptional performance had earned her a place among warriors who understood that true strength often came disguised as humility. The team that had once questioned whether their new medic could handle the pressures of their demanding missions now couldn't imagine operating without her. Sarah Chen had proven that heroes didn't always announce themselves loudly, and that the most valuable team members were often those who served with quiet dedication while carrying burdens that others couldn't see. As they prepared for future missions, the team did so with enhanced confidence in their collective abilities. Sarah's presence had not only improved their medical capabilities but had also demonstrated the importance of looking beyond surface appearances to recognize the true measure of a person's worth. The silence that had once surrounded Sarah's past had been replaced by the comfortable quiet of mutual respect and understanding. She had found her place among warriors who appreciated her sacrifice and service, while they had gained a team member whose capabilities exceeded anything they had initially imagined possible. In the end, Sarah's story became part of the team's legend, a reminder that the most valuable additions to any unit might arrive quietly, carrying skills and experiences that would only be revealed when circumstances demanded the very best from everyone involved. Her journey from wounded warrior to trusted teammate illustrated the healing power of purpose and the strength that could be found in serving alongside those who understood the true cost of freedom.